glad you're back. Today, I've got an interesting story to share. Have you ever been told you couldn't do something just because of who you are? Well, today's story is about a young girl named Grace who has this problem at school. Let's hear what happens, okay? Amazing Grace, written by Mary Hoffman, illustrated by Carolyn Binch. Grace was a girl who loved stories. She didn't mind if they were read to her or told to her or made up in her own head. She didn't care if they were from books or movies or out of Nana's long memory. Grace just loved stories. And after she heard them, and sometimes while they were still going on, Grace would act them out. And she always gave herself the most exciting part. Grace went into battle as Joan of Arc and wove a wicked web as Anansi the spider. She hid inside the wooden horse at the gates of Troy. She went exploring for lost kingdoms. And she sailed the 7 seas with a peg leg and a parrot. She was Aladdin, rubbing his magic lamp to make the genie appear, and Mowgli in the backyard jungle. Most of all, Grace loved to act out adventure stories and fairy tales. When there was no one else around, Grace played all the parts herself. She set out to seek her fortune, with no companion but her trusty cat, and found a city with streets paved in gold. Sometimes she would get Ma and Nana to join in, when they weren't too busy. Then she was Dr. Grace, and their lives were in her hands. One day, Grace's teacher said they were due the play Peter Pan. Grace knew who she wanted to be. When she raised her hand, Raj said, "You can't be Peter. That's a boy's name." But Grace kept her hand up. "You can't be Peter Pan," whispered Natalie. "He isn't black." But Grace kept her hand up. "All right," said the teacher. "Lots of you want to be Peter Pan, so we'll have auditions next week to choose parts." She gave them words to learn. When Grace got home, she seemed sad. "What's the matter?" asked Ma. "Raj says I couldn't be Peter Pan because I'm a girl." "That just shows what Raj knows," said Ma. "A girl can be Peter Pan if she wants to." Grace cheered up, and then later she remembered something else. "Natalie says I can't be Peter Pan because I'm black," she said. Ma looked angry, but before she could speak, Nana said, "It seems Natalie is another one who don't know nothing. You can be anything you want, Grace, if you put your mind to it." On Saturday, Nana told Grace they were going out. In the afternoon, they caught a bus and train into town. Nana took Grace to a grand theater. The sign outside read, "Rosalie Wilkins in Romeo and Juliet," in sparkling lights. "Are we going to the ballet, Nana?" asked Grace. "We are, honey, but first I want you to look at this picture." Grace looked up and saw a beautiful young ballerina in a tutu. Above the dancer it said, "Stunning New Juliet." "That one is little Rosalie from back home in Trinidad," said Nana. "Her granny and me. We grew up together on the island. She's always asking me, do I want tickets to see her Rosalie dance? So this time, I said yes. After the ballet, Grace played the part of Juliet, dancing around her room in her imaginary tutu. I can be anything I want, she thought. On Monday, the class met for auditions to choose who was the best for each part. When it was Grace's turn to be Peter, she knew exactly what to do and all the words to say. She had been Peter Pan all weekend. She took a deep breath and imagined herself flying. When it was time to vote, the class chose Raj to be Captain Hook and Natalie to be Wendy. There was no doubt who would be Peter Pan. Everyone voted for Grace. You were fantastic, whispered Natalie. The play was a big success, and Grace was an amazing Peter Pan. After it was all over, she said, I feel as if I could fly all the way home. You probably could, said Ma. Yes, said Nana. If Grace put her mind to it, she can do anything she wants. The end. Well, what did you think about the story? How do you think Grace felt when Raj and Natalie said she couldn't be Peter Pan in the school play because of who she was? Things turned out differently, though, didn't they? I remember back when I was in 4th grade, yes, a long time ago. One day, I decided to join the boys who played soccer every day during recess. Now, I was terrible. I never got near the ball, but it was fun running up and down, back and forth across the playground, right? But when we got back into class afterwards, one of the boys raised his hand and complained to the teacher, asking him to tell the class that girls weren't allowed to play soccer. Yeah, I know you can't hardly believe such a thing, right? Of course girls can play soccer. They do it all the time now, and some of them are really, really good at it, right? But not back when I was in grade school. You think it's okay to tell people they can't do things because of who they are or what they look like? What do you think Jesus would have said to that boy who raised his hand in my 4th grade class, who complained about me playing soccer? Would Jesus have agreed with the boy, or would he have said something different? What do you think? Oh yeah! Now, do you remember this story from the Bible? One day, a man came up to Jesus and asked and said, Teacher, what is the greatest commandment of the law? In other words, what's the most important thing that God would like me to do? And Jesus said, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. The second resembles it. You must love your neighbor as yourself. So, I think that pretty much answers the question. If we should love our neighbor, in other words, treat people like we'd like to be treated, of course, we should never tell people they can't do things because of who they are or what they look like, right? That isn't what Jesus would have us do. I bet you can do that, right? Now, I want you to have a good week, okay? Remember, what is it? Oh, yeah. Remember, God loves you so much. And as Pastor Becky always says, Jesus is crazy about you. Okay. Bye-bye. See you next week.